For this problem set, it's just 1, powers of 1, which means the answer is always 1. So the question is it odd or is it even? Let me break it down for you guys. A, B, C, D, and E, there's no parentheses. So it's going to be negative whatever the answer to 1 to the second power is. 1 to the second power is just 1 times 1. 1 times positive 1 is just 1. So the answer is going to be negative 1, just negative. This one here is going to be negative. And I'm going to put in parentheses 1 times 1 times 1. I take 1 to the third power and I make the answer negative. Since there's only one negative here, the answer will be negative. Negative times positive times positive times positive gives me negative. Here, same deal. I have 4 positives here. 1, 1, 1, and 1. And just make the answer negative. A negative times a positive is a negative, so it's negative. So the same here. 1 to the 5th power. I do 1 times 1 times 1 times 1 times 1 gives me positive 1. Make that negative, I get negative. Now, this is a little trickier here. Now that I have parentheses, negative 1 inside parentheses means I multiply negative 1 times negative 1. This is very important. That gives me a much different answer. Let's see what happens when I do that. Negative 1 times negative 1. So I'm going to do negative 1 times negative 1 gives me positive 1. A negative times a negative is positive. Let's see what happens here. Negative 1 times negative 1 times negative 1. Let me actually use Desmos. I think Desmos is going to show us a little better what happens here. So I'm going to use Desmos and watch what happens. Negative 1 times negative 1 gives me positive 1. If I multiply that by another negative 1, I'm going to get negative 1. So this gives me a negative answer. So negative 1 to the third power, in parentheses, gives me a negative. Now, watch what happens when I add a fourth one. Watch. I'm going to do times negative 1, and the answer has become positive again. Now, let me do a fifth one. That gives me negative. So just to clarify, negative 1 to the first power is negative 1. Negative 1 to the second power is positive. Negative 1 to the third power is negative. Negative 1 to the fourth power is positive. Negative 1 to the fifth power is negative. So you see, it goes positive, negative, positive, negative. There is the pattern.